Maybe we can start by sharing your thoughts about Dupixent because a lot of people have asked about Dupixent. So let's start by sharing your thoughts on that.
Sure. So Dupixent has come on the market and was FDA approved for adults in 2017 and approved for children in 2020. And a lot of patients ask me, what are the long-term side effects? And I'm like, we don't have long-term side effects. It hasn't been on the market and used in large population studies except since 2020. It's kind of like, when we talk about current pandemic and how long is the current vaccine, the antibodies. I'm like, we don't have long-term data. And so we don't have long-term data on Dupixent and what is it going to do? So if our children take this medication regularly, when they're ready to have children, what does that look like? When they become adults, do you develop another? Because it's a potent, what is Dupixent? Dupixent is a potent immunomodulator. And I talk to my patients, I'm like, it is like a cancer therapeutic drug. What are cancer drugs? They're potent immunomodulators. Generally speaking, we're not going into all of them, but generally speaking. So what always concerns me, we're like, well, the immune system is fired up and causing eczema in what we're talking about today. And then we say, oh, this is so horrible and horrific. Let's stomp down the immune system. And I get it. I understand why we're doing that. But the question that we're not asking, why is the immune system on fire? By using Dupixent, we're not answering that question. We're just putting a Band-Aid on a problem. And we don't know how horrible this Band-Aid is going to be. I don't know. For some people, it might be totally fine. But what about for the people that it's not going to be totally fine? And it's a powerful, powerful medication. It's not just kind of a little thing. And when we're dealing with eczema and our children are bleeding and they're scratching all night, and my son, he was older when he developed eczema, and he woke up and he was missing skin off his face. It was the most horrific thing. So of course you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get this child help ASAP because he has to go to school like this. So you're looking for, but when we're looking at these kind of medications, we got to really be careful of what is our plan with this. What are we really doing with this? Have we asked the question, why is my child's immune system on fire? And if we've never addressed why the child's immune system is on fire, you really can't go to Dupixent. If you've tried everything, listen, sometimes you've done everything. You've done the gut healing. You've done the dietary changes. You've done the supplements. You've done the detox. You've done mold, anything, you stood on your head, you tried everything, and there's just no relief in sight. That may be a life-saving solution for some people. So I'm not saying it's never, but in the US, we are way too quick to jump right to a medication like this. That's my whole thing. I say the same thing about ADHD medicines, about all of them. It's not that there's not a purpose for some of these medications for some people. It's just we're using them way too quickly, way too cavalier, for way too many people.
And I've heard of people as young as, kids as young as, I think it was even age 6 who have been on it. And we don't know what they're going to be like when they're off of it, or even if it is going to continue to help them long term.
Right. And when I look at cancer drugs, I'm like, we know the side effect of cancer drugs is later on getting cancer, because that's just the effect. So I'm like, does this have that? And they're like, no, we don't. I'm like, but it hasn't been on the market long enough. So I don't know that we have that answer. Most medication trials and things we know have been on the market for years. I do not know how long it was in clinical trials before 2017 to say, okay, well, obviously it was not 20 years out. Because we also these days seem to be moving some things through clinical trials a little bit quicker in the interest of making a little extra money. And I know we're trying to do a good thing, but I get a little worried and skeptical of how have we seen all the data? Has all the data been published? Do we truly know all the long-term side effects? I'm becoming quite skeptical these days.
And I think we talked last week on the Facebook Live about even how topical steroids have been around for 50 years, but only now are we seeing the side effect of topical steroid withdrawal.
100%. 100%. How about the fact that, there's so many things in our environment that we're like, oh, snap. How about Tylenol? Tylenol has been around for, I don't know, decades. And only now are we talking about that Tylenol is a risk factor for developing eczema. We've had Zantac, Pepcid, all these PPI or Prilosec, Nexium, all these medicines on the market for decades. And only now we're like, oh, actually it increases your risk of eczema. Oh, Zantac taken in infancy actually increases your risk for fractures. But we haven't talked, no one really talks about that even now, but it's coming a little bit more to the forefront. And these medicines have been around for decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is so much more to it. And what I love about you is that you actually look into the root cause to help treat it from the inside out.
Yeah, because when we use Band-Aids, so when we use topical steroids, again, sometimes you need topical steroids. When we use, we're not fixing the problem. So it's going to keep recurring. So then you have your child on Dupixent, and then after 6 months, you're like, okay, well, why does the eczema keep coming back? So does that mean that for the rest of your child's life, we're using Dupixent? Why does it? And that probably was the number one question that frustrated me so much when I was doing traditional medicine. I would prescribe steroids to my patients, yes, even babies, with eczema, and the parents would come back and they're like, why does it keep coming back? And my response was literally, because eczema keeps coming back. That was my answer. And now I'm like, what was I saying? Because I had no idea. Now I'm like, that I understand that there is a deeper cause, that it goes way beyond genetics, because a lot of things that I hear all the time, there's nothing I can do about it because it's genetic. Genetic is not the full answer. Genetic only puts you at 40% risk of eczema. That's still a huge number, but it's not 100%. So what is the rest of the story? And we need to look into it. Otherwise, the problem will keep recurring, or the problem will morph into something else. Like we have discussed before, 75% of kids who have eczema develop seasonal allergies. 75%. And then 50% develop asthma. That's a huge number, and 20% never outgrow eczema. It used to be like, oh, it's just no big deal. Now it's 20% don't. And then out of other kids with eczema, 6% develop ADHD. So if we don't treat the root cause of the eczema, we have all these other things that are coming down the pike. And then unfortunately, in traditional medicine, the way I used to be like, oh, it's coincidence. Oh, it just happens. There's no coincidence. There is a path that has been set forth, and are we paying attention to it? And are we addressing it, what the issues are from the beginning?
Wise words, Dr. Anna Maria. I love how you put it, because I think that's so important, the way you worded it.